Many men spend years believing that attraction is something they can earn through effort. They think that if they say the right words, give enough attention, explain themselves clearly, or prove their value patiently, desire will eventually appear. From a psychological perspective, this belief is deeply flawed. Attraction, especially sexual attraction, does not operate on logic or fairness. It operates on instinct, perception, and emotional signals that are processed far faster than conscious thought. Women do not sit down and rationally calculate who they feel drawn to. Their nervous system decides first, often within seconds, and their mind only justifies it later. At the center of this process is confidence, but not the version most men imagine. Confidence is not loudness, dominance, aggression, or trying to appear superior. True confidence is quiet. It is the feeling of inner certainty that a man carries before he ever speaks. It shows up in how he stands, how he moves, how comfortable he is with silence, and how little he needs approval to remain grounded. A confident man does not rush to fill space. He does not over-explain himself. He does not adjust his identity to match the reaction in front of him. He knows who he is, what he wants, and what he tolerates. And that clarity radiates outward, psychologically. This kind of confidence sends powerful signals to a woman's subconscious. It communicates direction instead of confusion, stability instead of emotional volatility, and safety instead of unpredictability. Safety here does not mean harmlessness. It means emotional composure. A woman senses that this man is not easily shaken, not desperate for validation, and not dependent on her response to feel whole. This is rare, and rarity creates attraction. When a man is centered within himself, he becomes a point of gravity rather than someone orbiting around others. One of the most counterintuitive truths men struggle to accept is that women respond more strongly to clarity than to effort. Explaining your intentions repeatedly weakens them. Trying harder often signals insecurity rather than value. Over-talking dilutes presence. When a man is certain, he does not need to convince. His behavior already communicates what words cannot. Attraction forms not because he is chasing, but because he is grounded. This is why some men say very little and still spark instant interest, while others invest enormous energy and receive nothing. The difference is not in technique, but in inner alignment. And this clarity becomes even more critical when we look at how quickly women begin to categorize men the moment an interaction starts, a process we need to understand next. One of the most uncomfortable truths for men is that women categorize them almost immediately. This happens far faster than most realize and far earlier than most would like. Within the first moments of interaction, a woman's subconscious begins placing a man into a mental category that defines how she will relate to him moving forward. This process is not malicious or calculated. It is instinctive, efficient, and rooted in emotional pattern recognition developed over time. She's not asking whether he is a good person. She is asking, often unconsciously, what role he belongs in her life. These categories tend to be stable and resistant to change. A man may be placed into the friend zone, where he feels safe, familiar, and non-threatening but not sexually compelling. Another may be seen as the nice guy, someone she likes and appreciates, yet does not desire. And then there is the category reserved for men she feels immediate sexual attraction toward. This man triggers curiosity, tension, and a sense of polarity. What separates these categories is rarely appearance alone and almost never effort. The factors that influence this instant classification are subtle but powerful. Body language speaks before words. A man who takes up space comfortably, maintains relaxed posture, and moves with ease signals self-assurance. Eye contact that is calm rather than searching communicates certainty rather than need. Tone of voice matters more than content, because it reveals emotional control. Perhaps most telling is a man's comfort with silence. A man who does not panic when there is nothing to say signals inner stability. A man who rushes to fill every gap often signals anxiety. The men placed into the sexually desired category share common traits that women sense quickly. They exhibit calm masculinity rather than performative dominance. They demonstrate emotional strength by staying composed under uncertainty. They move with direction, even in conversation, rather than reacting to every emotional shift. They have low tolerance for unnecessary drama and do not chase validation. This creates polarity, the energetic contrast that fuels desire, once a man is categorized. Moving into another category becomes extremely difficult. This is why men often feel stuck, confused, or frustrated. They believe more time, more kindness, or more explanation will change how she sees them in reality. The initial emotional impression becomes a filter through which all future behavior is interpreted. Understanding this is not meant to create fear, but awareness, because once categorized, the only moments when that perception is truly tested is when uncertainty appears. And that is where testing behavior and neediness reveal everything. After initial attraction or categorization occurs, many women unconsciously introduce small tests. These are not games designed to manipulate, but mechanisms to verify whether a man's confidence and emotional stability are real or merely an act. From a psychological standpoint, attraction increases when a woman feels that what she senses in a man is consistent under pressure. Tests create mild uncertainty, and uncertainty reveals character faster than comfort ever could. These tests often appear subtle. She may reply slower than before, create a little emotional distance, or become less predictable in her warmth. Sometimes her tone shifts slightly, or she seems momentarily unavailable without explanation. To a man who lacks emotional control, these moments feel threatening. His mind begins racing. He wonders what went wrong, what he should say, or how to fix the situation. In that moment, the test has already begun. What a woman is observing during these moments is not his words, but his emotional response. She is watching whether he remains centered or collapses into anxiety. Emotional stability signals strength because it suggests that a man's sense of self does not depend on external validation. When a man stays calm, grounded, and consistent despite uncertainty, attraction deepens. It confirms that his confidence is not performative but internal. Negative response patterns are extremely revealing. Panic often shows up as double texting, over-explaining, or seeking reassurance. Neediness appears when a man tries to lock her down emotionally to avoid loss. Desperation leaks through in excessive availability or emotional intensity that feels disproportionate to the connection. Fear of loss makes a man abandon his own standards just to maintain proximity. All of these reactions shift the power dynamic and quietly erode attraction. From a psychological lens, neediness signals weakness not because needing someone is wrong, but because it implies emotional dependence. When a man communicates, even subtly, that losing her would destabilize him, the attraction polarity collapses. Desire requires tension. It requires two whole individuals choosing each other, not one person clinging to the other for emotional grounding. Paradoxically, the man who is unafraid to lose her often becomes more desirable. This does not mean indifference or coldness. It means self-sufficiency. He knows his value, enjoys her presence, but does not require her to feel complete. That emotional self-control is deeply attractive because it suggests strength, abundance, and maturity. This is also why another common mistake men make further damages attraction, especially when they begin placing women on a pedestal, something we need to examine carefully next. One of the most persistent misconceptions men carry into dating is the belief that placing a woman on a pedestal will make her feel valued and therefore more attracted. On the surface, this seems logical. If she is treated as special, admired constantly, and prioritized above all else, surely she will feel desired. Psychologically, however, the opposite often occurs. Pedestalization quietly undermines attraction because it distorts the balance of value within the dynamic. When a man elevates a woman excessively, he is not just praising her, he is diminishing himself. Excessive compliments, early overinvestment, and treating her as superior purely because of her beauty or presence communicate insecurity rather than appreciation. A woman senses when admiration comes from self-respect versus when it comes from validation seeking. In the latter case, the attention feels heavy, expectant, and subtly transactional, even if the man never intends it that way. From a psychological perspective, pedestalization signals that the man believes she is the prize and he is the applicant. This shifts the dynamic into one where she holds all the power and he unconsciously waits for approval. Desire thrives on polarity, not hierarchy. When a man places himself below her, that polarity collapses. Instead of feeling drawn toward him, she feels responsible for him, and responsibility kills sexual attraction. Women often interpret pedestal behavior as a lack of options, a lack of self-worth, or a lack of emotional independence. Even if the man is kind, loyal, and attentive, those qualities lose their impact when they are given without boundaries. Attraction requires tension, and tension requires equality. A man who respects himself treats a woman as an equal, not an idol. He appreciates her, but he does not surrender his standards, time, or identity to gain her approval. When a man refuses to pedestalize, something interesting happens psychologically. He becomes rare. His attention feels earned rather than guaranteed. His approval carries weight because it is not given freely to everyone. This does not make him arrogant or dismissive. It makes him grounded. The woman feels that she is being chosen, not worshipped, and that subtle shift awakens desire. True attraction grows when both individuals feel valued without one being elevated above the other. And this balance becomes even more powerful when combined with a man who has direction beyond the relationship itself, which leads directly into the role of purpose and mission. Attraction deepens not when a man becomes more available, but when he becomes more grounded in his own direction. One of the strongest psychological pull factors for women is a man who has a clear sense of purpose that exists independently of her presence. This does not mean obsession with work or emotional distance. It means that his life has structure, momentum, and forward movement that does not pause waiting for her validation. A man with a mission communicates value without words. His time matters because it is allocated intentionally. He has goals he is actively pursuing, routines that anchor him, and standards that guide his choices when he spends time with a woman. It feels deliberate rather than desperate. He is present, but not consumed. This balance creates emotional safety while preserving attraction. From a psychological standpoint, excessive availability signals a lack of direction. When a man rearranges his entire life around a woman's responses, replies instantly at all hours, or abandons his priorities to maintain proximity, he communicates that nothing else anchors him. This places unspoken pressure on her to become the center of his emotional world, and pressure suffocates desire. Women are drawn to men who are moving forward, not men who are standing still, waiting to be chosen. Purpose naturally creates boundaries. A man who values his time does not tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional chaos easily. He does not chase confusion. These boundaries are not enforced through control or ultimatums, but through self-respect. Psychologically, boundaries signal strength. They show that a man knows what aligns with his life and what does not. This clarity generates both respect and attraction. When a woman senses that a man's life is full, structured, and progressing, she experiences him as stable and grounded. She does not feel responsible for motivating him or emotionally managing him. Instead, she feels invited into a life that already has direction. This invitation is far more attractive than availability that feels empty. It is important to understand that purpose is not performative. It cannot be faked convincingly. Women sense whether a man is genuinely engaged with his path or merely pretending to appear busy. Authentic purpose reinforces confidence, and confidence reinforces attraction. Together, they form a foundation that allows desire to grow without pressure. However, while desire can be instant and intense, it is not the same force that sustains long-term connection. When attraction shifts into something deeper and real, a noticeable transformation occurs, and understanding the transformation is essential to recognizing genuine love. There is a critical psychological difference between desire and love that many men confuse, and this confusion often leads to misinterpretation of female behavior. Desire is instinctive, fast, and largely unconscious. Love, on the other hand, is intentional, deliberate, and expressed through consistent behavior over time. A woman may feel desire quickly, even intensely, but when love becomes real, her behavior changes in ways that are unmistakable. When love is genuine, games begin to disappear. Emotional inconsistency is replaced by steadiness. Where there was once uncertainty, there is now clarity. A woman who is emotionally invested no longer feels the need to test excessively or create ambiguity to gauge a man's strength. She already feels safe in his presence. Her nervous system relaxes, and with that relaxation comes openness. This is one of the clearest psychological markers that desire has evolved into something deeper. Behaviorally, genuine love shows itself through alignment. Her words begin to match her actions. If she says she cares, her behavior reinforces it. If she says she wants to see him, she makes time. Prioritization becomes natural rather than forced. There is less hesitation, fewer mixed signals, and more transparency. Love simplifies rather than complicates. It removes confusion instead of creating it. Another key indicator is respect for boundaries and time. A woman who genuinely loves a man does not seek to destabilize him emotionally. She values his mission, his responsibilities, and his individuality. Rather than competing with his purpose, she supports it. Emotional softness appears, not as weakness, but as trust. She becomes more receptive, more nurturing, and more emotionally available because she feels secure. It is important to understand that sexual desire and emotional commitment are not mutually exclusive, but they are governed by different psychological mechanisms. A woman may sleep quickly with a man who activates strong desire, yet that alone does not guarantee she will stay. Commitment grows when she experiences consistency, emotional safety, and integrity over time. Love is not triggered by intensity, but sustained by reliability. This is where many men misread early passion as long-term interest and become confused when things fade. Passion without stability burns fast. Love grows slower, but it endures. A woman who loves does not leave you guessing where you stand. She brings clarity into your life, not anxiety. Understanding this distinction allows men to stop chasing emotional highs and start recognizing what actually leads to lasting connection. And when all of these elements are seen together, the full picture of attraction and rejection becomes clear, which we will bring together in the final synthesis. When all of these psychological pieces are viewed together, a clear pattern emerges. Instant attraction is not mysterious, random, or unfair. It follows consistent emotional rules that operate beneath conscious awareness. Women are not responding to how hard a man tries, how much he explains, or how much effort he invests. They are responding to who he is being in the moment they encounter him. His inner state speaks before his words ever do. Confidence forms the foundation. Not confidence as performance, but confidence as inner certainty and emotional composure. This creates clarity, and clarity creates attraction. Emotional self-control reinforces that attraction by showing stability under uncertainty. Purpose and direction give that stability weight, signaling that the man's life is moving forward with or without external validation. Self-respect binds it all together, expressed through boundaries, standards, and refusal to pedestalize anyone at the cost of his own value. Rejection, in contrast, often comes from the same predictable sources. Neediness communicates emotional dependence and collapses polarity. Overinvestment too early signals insecurity rather than interest. A lack of direction forces a woman into the role of emotional anchor, which suffocates desire. Seeking validation places power outside the self, and attraction cannot survive where self-worth is outsourced. The most difficult truth for many men is that desire does not reward effort. Effort matters later, when love and commitment are being built. But desire responds first to essence. It responds to presence, certainty, and grounded masculinity. This is why two men can behave completely differently and receive opposite reactions from the same woman, and why trying to logically negotiate attraction almost always fails. Love, when it arrives, follows a different rhythm. It grows from consistency, clarity, and intentional behavior. Where desire sparks quickly, love deepens slowly. Where desire thrives on polarity, love thrives on trust. A woman may feel immediate sexual pull toward a man who activates her instincts, but she stays, commits, and builds with the man who proves emotionally reliable over time. Love simplifies. It aligns words with actions. It removes confusion rather than intensifying it. The ultimate conclusion is not cynical, but empowering. Attraction is not something men must chase endlessly or manipulate into existence. It is a natural response to inner alignment. When a man becomes grounded in who he is, clear in where he is going, and emotionally self-contained, attraction becomes a byproduct rather than a pursuit. Desire responds to identity. Love responds to consistency. Understanding this frees men from over-trying and redirects them toward becoming.